That sudden silence from someone you trusted cuts deeper than any argument. One day you are sharing your world with them, and the next you are met with nothing but digital quiet, left to wonder what you did wrong. This modern form of rejection can leave you feeling powerless, questioning your own worth. But what if you could completely flip the script? An ancient philosophy, practiced by Roman emperors and slaves alike, offers a set of mental tools to reclaim your power. This is a journey through 25 specific Stoic tactics designed to make the act of ghosting feel utterly powerless against your unshakable inner strength. By the end, you will possess a complete framework to not just cope, but to emerge from the experience more resilient and self-assured than before. We will uncover how to transform this personal obstacle into your greatest advantage and why your quietest moments can become your most powerful. What is the first thought that arises when you feel that sting of being ignored? That first painful thought is what the Stoics would call your initial impression. It is raw and unexamined, but right here in that very moment you have a choice. You can hand over your entire sense of peace to someone else's silence, or you can activate the first and most fundamental Stoic tactic. This is the dichotomy of control. It is the simple, brutal, and ultimately liberating recognition that some things are within our power and others are not. Your own actions, your judgments, your values, your effort, your character, these are your domain. They are entirely up to you. Everything else, from the weather to another person's feelings, and most certainly their decision to stop replying to you, falls outside that sacred circle. It is an external. When you are ghosted, the natural reaction is to frantically try to control the uncontrollable. You draft messages you never send. You analyze old conversations for hidden clues. You wonder what you could have done differently to force a different outcome. This is like trying to command the tide not to come in. You are fighting a battle you were never meant to win, and you will only exhaust yourself. The power of ghosting lies in its ability to make you feel like a passive victim of someone else's choice. The dichotomy of control shatters that illusion. The moment you consciously decide their silence is their business, but my peace is my business, you reclaim your agency. You stop investing your energy in the mystery of why they did it and start investing it in your own unwavering response. Your value was never determined by their attention in the first place. It was always an internal property, and now you get to prove it to yourself. This is not about suppressing emotion. It is about placing your attention where it can actually build something, rather than where it will only ever be drained. You focus on what you can control, your breath, your next step, your commitment to your own well-being, and in doing so, you immediately drain the ghosting event of its power to devastate you. It becomes their action, a single data point in the vast story of your life, rather than the defining tragedy of it. That frantic need for control often comes from a fear of the unknown, a deep-seated dread of what their silence might mean. But there is a powerful Stoic exercise designed to confront that fear directly, to drain its power before it even has a chance to take hold. This is the second tactic, negative visualization, or what the Romans called premeditatio malorum. It is the deliberate practice of mentally rehearsing life's potential hardships. Think of it as a fire drill for your soul. You do not wait for the flames to feel real before you figure out your escape route. You walk through the steps calmly in your mind, so if the alarm ever sounds, your body and mind know exactly what to do. You do not simply worry about being ghosted, you actively visualize it. You sit in a quiet space and you consciously picture the scenario unfolding. You see the message left on read, you feel the initial sting of confusion, you acknowledge the rising questions. But here is the crucial difference. You do not stop at the pain. You continue the mental movie. You watch yourself applying the first tactic, reminding yourself that their silence is not within your control. You see yourself taking a deep breath. you picture yourself turning your attention to the things you can control: your work, your friends, your health, your own growth. You walk through the entire emotional arc from shock to stability, all within the safe confines of your own mind. By doing this, you are not inviting misfortune. You are inoculating yourself against panic. When the real event happens, it is no longer a shocking, world-ending catastrophe. It is a scenario you have already faced and overcome in your imagination. The emotional charge is gone, replaced by a calm sense of familiarity. Oh, you think, this is that situation I prepared for, and because you have already rehearsed your response, you are not scrambling in the moment. Your composure remains intact. The ghosting becomes a test you have already studied for, and you are ready to pass with a quiet, unshakable strength. This mental preparation builds a resilience that makes you virtually immune to the destabilizing shock that gives ghosting its power. That strength you build through mental preparation gives you a solid foundation, but Stoicism offers an even wider lens to look through. There is a profound sense of freedom that comes from viewing events from a cosmic perspective. For a moment, step outside of the immediate hurt and picture the Earth not as a map of your social life, but as a pale blue dot suspended in a vast, silent ocean of space. On that dot, entire civilizations have risen and fallen, mountains have been worn down to dust, and countless lives have been lived, each with their own unique joys and sorrows. Now bring that view back to your own life. See the entire timeline of your existence from your first breath to this very moment, and then project it forward. In that grand, sweeping narrative, where does this one person's silence truly fit? It becomes a single grain of sand on an endless beach, a brief, quiet moment in a story that is still being written. This is not meant to minimize your feelings, but to maximize your context. The pain is real, but its power to define you is an illusion you can now see through. When you feel ignored, your mind has a tendency to magnify the event until it blocks out everything else. It becomes the only thing you can see. The cosmic perspective corrects this optical illusion of the heart. It reminds you that your worth is not a fluctuating stock price based on someone's attention or inattention. It is a constant, as steady and enduring as the stars. Their decision to disappear says nothing about your inherent value. Just as a single cloud passing in front of the sun does not mean the sun has ceased to shine. It is merely a temporary condition. Think about the things that truly matter in your life: your health, your passions, the people who consistently show up for you, your capacity for growth and kindness. These are the planets and suns in your personal solar system. The person who ghosted you was at best a passing comet, bright for a time but now gone, leaving the fundamental structure of your universe completely intact. By consciously choosing this wider view, you drain the drama from the situation. The frantic questions lose their urgency. Why did they do it becomes a mild curiosity, not a life or death mystery. The silence stops being a verdict on your character and becomes simply a data point. A choice they made for their own reasons, reasons that likely have far more to do with their own internal world than with anything you did or are. This cosmic zoom out is a deliberate act of empowerment. You are choosing to no longer be the protagonist in their small, silent drama, and instead reclaiming your role as the author of your own epic story. And as the author, you get to decide what this event means. Will it be a footnote or a chapter of transformation? This shift in perspective naturally leads to a deeper question, one that moves you from passive observer to active architect of your own peace. The silence you are facing is not an interruption to your path, it is part of the path itself. This is where we move from acceptance to affirmation with the fourth Stoic tactic, Amor Fati, which translates to a love of one's fate. It is the radical decision to not just endure what happens to you, but to embrace it, to welcome it as if you had chosen it yourself for your own ultimate benefit. When you are ghosted, the instinct is to see it as a pure negative, a rejection that diminishes you. Amor Fati asks you to flip that script entirely. What if this event, painful as it is actually necessary? What if it is a redirection, steering you away from a connection that was not aligned with your growth and towards something more authentic? Think of a river blocked by a fallen tree. The obstacle does not destroy the river, it simply forces it to find a new course, often one that leads to richer, undiscovered landscapes. This silence is your fallen tree. It is forcing a redirection you may not have chosen for yourself, but one that your journey required. By loving your fate, you stop fighting the current and start exploring the new direction with curiosity rather than resentment. This is a profound lesson in self-reliance. That person's presence might have been a source of validation, a mirror in which you saw a reflection of yourself you liked. Now that the mirror is gone, you are left with just you, and this is the gift. You are being handed an opportunity to build your validation from within, to find that sense of worth in your own actions and character, not in someone else's fleeting attention. The connection acted as a filter, and it removed someone who was not equipped for the entire journey with you. Is that not a blessing in disguise? Wasting years on a one-sided relationship is a far greater pain than the sharp, clean cut of being ghosted now. Amor Fati means looking at that empty space where there used to be and feeling a sense of gratitude for the clarity it brings. You are not grateful for the hurt, but for the strength and wisdom it invites you to cultivate. You are not loving the pain, you are loving the person you are becoming because of it. This mindset transforms you from a victim of circumstance into an active participant in your own evolution. The ghosting ceases to be something that happened to you and becomes something that is happening for you. And when you can look at any event in your life, especially the difficult ones, and see them as fuel for your growth, you become truly unstoppable. Nothing can derail you because every experience, every silence becomes another essential thread in the unbreakable tapestry of your character. That profound embrace of your fate is only possible when you first learn to see events for what they are, stripped of the story you instinctively wrap around them. The fifth tactic is the art of judgment suspension. The moment you notice the silence, your mind rushes to assign it a meaning, a harsh, definitive label. They do not care about me, I am not good enough, I did something wrong, this is a catastrophe. The Stoics would challenge you right there. They would say the event itself, the simple fact of an unanswered message, is neutral. It is just a piece of data, a blank slate. The pain does not come from the silence itself, but from the judgment you instantly stamp onto it. You are not being hurt by the ghosting, you are being hurt by your own interpretation of the ghosting. Think of it like hearing a sudden, loud noise in the night. Your first judgment might be an intruder is in the house and your body floods with panic. But if you suspend that judgment for just a moment, you might realize the sound was just a book falling from a shelf. The noise itself was neutral. It was your immediate story about the noise that created the fear. The same principle applies here. When you are ghosted, your mind screams a terrifying story. Your task is to pause, to take a deliberate breath, and to consciously refuse to accept that first frantic interpretation. Observe the facts and only the facts. The message was sent. A reply has not been received. That is all you know for certain. Everything else, the reasons, the motivations, the implications about your worth, is pure speculation, a story you are telling yourself. By holding your judgment in suspense, you create a tiny but crucial gap between the event and your reaction. In that gap lies your freedom. The initial emotional sting loses its intensity because you are no longer fueling it with a narrative of disaster. You are simply observing a situation, not yet defining it. This does not mean you are suppressing your feelings. It means you are choosing not to be swept away by the first wave of them. You are allowing yourself to feel the confusion without letting that confusion write the entire script. From this place of calm observation, you can then choose a more rational, empowered response. Instead of firing off an angry or pleading text driven by that initial negative judgment, you can act from a place of clarity. you can decide that their silence is information enough about their character and their capacity for communication. You can choose to invest your energy elsewhere, not as a reactive punishment, but as a calm, logical conclusion based on the observable data. Suspending judgment turns you from a prisoner of your first impression into the master of your final response. Their silence is not a wall, it is a door. This is the core of the sixth tactic, the ancient Stoic principle that the obstacle is the way. Being ghosted is the perfect, albeit painful, example of this philosophy in action. The obstacle itself, the sudden lack of communication, becomes the very path to a stronger, more self-reliant you. It is the friction that sharpens the blade of your character. Think of a fire. For a fire to burn, it needs fuel. Your initial hurt, your confusion, your sense of rejection, that is your fuel. The old, reactive you would have thrown this fuel onto a pyre of self-pity, letting it consume you in smoke and despair. But the Stoic approach is different. You take that same emotional fuel and you redirect it. You use its heat to forge something new. That energy you would have spent obsessing over their last message, you now invest in a neglected project. The time you would have dedicated to waiting for a notification, you now give to a new skill. The mental space they once occupied, you now fill with deeper connections with people who value your presence. The ghosting becomes the catalyst that forces you to build a life so full and compelling that one person's absence is barely a noticeable silence. This is also a real-time test of every principle we have discussed so far. It is easy to talk about the dichotomy of control when life is calm, but here, in the heat of this emotional moment, is where your practice truly begins. Are you focusing on what you can control, your own actions and growth, or are you still trying to mentally control their decision? Are you applying negative visualization, remembering that you prepared for this possibility and know how to respond with composure? Are you viewing this from a cosmic perspective, understanding its true scale in your grand story? The obstacle of being ignored is the way you prove to yourself that these are not just abstract ideas, but living tools for your liberation. Every time you choose your own progress over passing their silence, you are walking the path. You are demonstrating that their power to disrupt your peace was always an illusion you consented to. And with each step you take on this new path, the ghosting diminishes, not because the person has returned, but because you have moved so far beyond the need for their validation that you can barely even see the place where you once stood waiting. Your mind is now a fortress, but what about your comfort zone? It is that deep-seated aversion to unease that gives ghosting its sharpest edge. The seventh tactic is a deliberate training regimen for your soul, a practice the Stoics called voluntary discomfort. This is about intentionally and temporarily stepping away from the very things that make you feel safe and comfortable, specifically to build a tolerance for the emotional chill of being ignored. Think of it as weight training for your resilience. You would not walk into a gym for the first time and try to lift the heaviest barbell. You would start with lighter weights consistently to build the muscle and the form needed for bigger challenges. In the same way, you can prepare for the potential discomfort of ghosting by voluntarily choosing smaller, manageable forms of unease. This could be something as simple as a 24-hour digital detox where you silence all non-essential notifications and sit with the quiet. At first, you might feel that familiar twinge of anxiety, that urge to check for messages, to fill the silence with noise. But by sitting with it, by observing the feeling without reacting, you are building your discomfort muscle. You are proving to yourself that you can handle silence, that your sense of self does not shatter when you are not being acknowledged from the outside. Another powerful form of voluntary discomfort is spending intentional time alone, not as a punishment but as an exploration. Go for a long walk without your phone, or spend an evening at home without turning on the television or a podcast. Let your own thoughts be your company. In that space, you will likely encounter the same feelings of loneliness or restlessness that ghosting can trigger. But here, you are in control. You are the one who chose this, and you can end it whenever you wish. This practice teaches you a crucial lesson that these uncomfortable feelings are temporary visitors, not permanent residents. They do not have the power to break you. When the real event of ghosting happens, it is no longer a shocking, unprecedented hardship. It feels more like a weight you have lifted before. Your nervous system recognizes the sensation, and instead of panicking, it knows how to breathe through it. The practice of voluntary discomfort rewires your relationship with unease itself. You stop seeing it as a threat to be avoided at all costs and start seeing it as a condition to be navigated, a terrain you have already mapped. You realize that your peace was never dependent on a constant stream of external validation, but on your own proven capacity to be okay, even when things are not perfectly comfortable. This is how you truly disarm the ghost, not by fighting its silence, but by becoming so familiar with quiet that its presence holds no power over you. Their silence tells you nothing about your character, only about their own. This is the heart of the 8th Stoic tactic, a crucial shift from worrying about your reputation to focusing exclusively on your character. Reputation is the fragile, external impression you leave in the minds of others, a fleeting shadow over which you have little final control. Your character, however, is the internal fortress of your virtues, your courage, your justice, your self-discipline, and your wisdom, a domain that is yours and yours alone to command. When you are ghosted, the natural hurt often stems from a blow to your reputation. You are left wondering what story they are telling about you, what flaw they saw that made you disposable. This is a trap. You are trying to manage an external narrative that you can never truly own or control. Their decision to disappear is a statement about their own character, their communication style, their capacity for handling difficult conversations. It is a reflection of their virtues or lack thereof, not yours. Your task is to turn your gaze inward. Ask yourself the only questions that truly matter. Did I act with integrity in that connection? Was I honest, kind, and just to the best of my ability? If the answer is yes, then your character remains untarnished, regardless of the silent treatment you are now receiving. Their opinion, their silent judgment, is just another external event like the weather. It happens, but it does not define the solid ground you stand on. Imagine two artists. One spends all their energy reading reviews and worrying about what the critics will say, constantly altering their work to please an unpredictable audience. The other artist locks themselves in their studio, focused solely on mastering their craft, on the integrity of each brushstroke, which one builds a lasting legacy. The ghoster is merely a critic who left without writing a review. Your character is the masterpiece you are creating with your life. Do not abandon your studio to chase after a critic who has already walked away. By anchoring your sense of self in your own virtuous actions, you make the ghosting powerless. It cannot touch the core of who you are because that core was never dependent on their approval in the first place. You stop seeking to be seen as good and focus solely on being good. And from that unshakable foundation, your next steps become clear, confident, and entirely your own. This silence feels like an eternity, yet it is a single breath in the span of a lifetime. There is a Stoic practice that places even this sharp pain within the grandest context of all, the undeniable truth of your own mortality. This is the 9th tactic, memento mori, the remembrance that you will die. It is not a morbid fixation, but a profound tool for clarity. When the sting of being ignored feels overwhelming, ask yourself this one piercing question. On my final day, looking back on my entire life, will this person's silence hold any weight at all? Will it even be a memory I can recall, or will it have faded into the inconsequential background of a life fully lived? The answer, when you are truly honest, is a resounding no. This realization does not belittle your current feelings, it liberates them. It pulls the emergency brake on a runaway train of anxiety. forcing you to see the situation for what it really is, a temporary, minor social friction, not a life-defining catastrophe. Memento mori acts as a filter for your attention, straining out the trivial and leaving only the essential. It asks you to measure your emotional investment against the ultimate yardstick of a finite life. Is this silence truly worthy of the precious, irreplaceable hours you are giving to it? The energy spent decoding their motives could be invested in a conversation with a loved one, in learning a skill that brings you joy, or in simply being present in a beautiful moment. This practice reorients your entire existence toward what truly matters. Your character, your contributions, the love you give and receive, these are the things that will echo when your time comes. The opinion of someone who chose to vanish from your story will be utterly silent. By remembering that your time is limited, you are empowered to stop wasting it on people who have voluntarily removed themselves from your journey. Their exit is not a loss, it is a gift of reclaimed time, time you can now spend on pursuits and people of substance. This remembrance fills you with a quiet, urgent purpose to live so fully that minor rejections simply cannot penetrate the deep satisfaction of a life aligned with your true values. The ghost becomes not a monster in the shadows, but a fleeting whisper drowned out by the vibrant sound of your own unfolding story. Gratitude might feel like the last possible response to a silent phone. Yet this is the precise moment to activate the 10th Stoic tactic, practicing gratitude for the lesson itself. You are not being asked to be grateful for the hurt, but for the profound clarity that the hurt makes unavoidable. That silence, as painful as it is, has cut through the noise and shown you a raw, unfiltered truth. Be grateful for that truth. It has ended the ambiguity, freeing you from a connection that was not built on a foundation of mutual respect or open communication. Think of the mental energy you are pouring into deciphering their mixed signals or hoping for a change. That energy is now returned to you, a vast reservoir of attention you can redirect toward your own goals and the people who genuinely light up when you enter the room. This is a gift of time and focus handed to you by their departure. Be grateful for the strength you are discovering in its wake. You are being forced to rely on your own inner resources to validate yourself, to become the source of your own stability. This is a strength that no one can ever take from you, and it would not have been forged in the comfort of an easy, unchallenged connection. The ghosting becomes the fire that tempers your steel. Start small. Find one concrete thing this experience has given you. Perhaps it is the simple, stark realization that you deserve conversations, not silence. Perhaps it is the rediscovery of an old hobby you now have the space to enjoy. Maybe it is just the quiet proof that you can survive this, that your heart is more resilient than you knew. By actively searching for these points of light, you perform a kind of psychological alchemy. You are not pretending the darkness is not there. You are simply choosing to focus on the stars it has made visible. This practice transforms the ghosting from a personal attack into a curriculum for your growth. The person who faded away was not your destination. They were a teacher in a difficult, unmarked classroom. And the lesson they left behind is one of self-reliance, discernment, and the unshakable value of your own peace. When you can look at their silence and sincerely say thank you for what it taught me, you have not only neutralized its power, you have claimed it as fuel for your own ascent. The ghost's silence can only echo in the spaces you have not yet claimed for yourself. When your sense of worth is built upon the shifting sands of another person's attention, their withdrawal feels like the ground collapsing beneath you. But what if your foundation was made of something far more solid, something no silence could ever erode? This is the 11th Stoic tactic, the deliberate and permanent work of defining your own worth internally. Stoicism insists that your value is not an external trophy to be awarded or taken away, but an internal reality forged through your own virtuous actions. It is the quiet knowledge that you have acted with integrity, that you have treated others with fairness, that you have shown courage in the face of difficulty, and that you have pursued wisdom. This is the unassailable core of your self-esteem. When you know deep in your bones that you are a person of good character, the opinion of someone who chooses to disappear becomes irrelevant. Their silence cannot diminish what you have built from within because it was never part of the construction materials. You would not let a passing stranger on the street appraise the value of your family heirlooms, so why would you let a ghoster appraise the value of your soul? Their actions are a reflection of their own inner world, a world you are not responsible for and cannot control. Your only true task is to tend to your own garden, to pull the weeds of vice and plant the seeds of virtue day after day. Every time you choose honesty over deception, kindness over cruelty, or discipline over laziness, you are depositing another brick into the foundation of your self-worth. A ghoster's silence is like a gust of wind. It may rustle the leaves on the surface, but it cannot topple a structure built this deep. The power they seem to hold was only ever the power you lent them by outsourcing your self-assessment. The moment you reclaim that power, their silence transforms from a verdict into a simple, neutral fact. It becomes data about their journey, not a judgment on yours. You are no longer a supplicant waiting for a sign of approval. You are the architect of your own value, standing firmly in a house you built with your own hands. Their silence is a fortress you believe they built against you, but its walls are made of their own fears. The 12th Stoic tactic invites you to see the humanity in the person who ghosted you. This is not an exercise in making excuses for them or minimizing your own hurt. It is a strategic shift in perspective designed to dissolve the poison of feeling personally victimized. Consider what it truly takes for a person to simply disappear from another's life. It is not an act of strength. It is often an act of profound fear, a deep-seated insecurity, or an emotional limitation they have not yet overcome. They may fear confrontation, dread the discomfort of a difficult conversation, or feel so overwhelmed by their own life that they retreat from all connections. Their ghosting is a message, but it is not about your worth. It is a raw, unedited broadcast of their own internal struggles. You are not dealing with a powerful judge handing down a verdict. You are interacting with a flawed, fragile human being who chose to run from a situation they felt unequipped to handle. When you can see them in this light, not as a villain but as a fellow struggler, the event loses its sharp, personal edge. The story changes from, "They did this to me because I am not enough," to "They did this because of their own limitations." This reframe is incredibly liberating. It transfers the weight of the event from your shoulders back to its rightful owner. You begin to feel a kind of sober pity for their inability to communicate with basic decency, rather than a burning anger or a crippling sadness directed inward. Think of a child who hides after breaking something valuable. Their silence is not a calculated insult. It is a panicked response to a situation they do not know how to manage. The adult in the scenario, while rightly disappointed, understands the child's fear and does not take the hiding as a personal attack on their character. In the same way, seeing the ghoster's humanity allows you to step into the role of the emotionally mature adult. You can acknowledge the rudeness of their action while also understanding its likely roots in their own emotional immaturity or distress. This perspective does not mean you have to welcome them back or even forgive them. It simply means you stop letting their unresolved issues dictate your sense of peace. You see their ghosting for what it is, a reflection of their own flawed nature, and in doing so, you reclaim the narrative. You are no longer the target of a malicious act. You are a bystander to someone else's personal struggle. And as a bystander, you are free to simply walk away, your own character and peace intact, leaving them to their silence. That fortress of pity you built around their humanity now reveals an even larger truth. The world itself is not a perfectly ordered machine designed for our comfort. It is a living, breathing, and often unpredictable system. The 13th Stoic tactic is to align yourself with this fundamental reality, to live in accordance with nature. This means accepting the world and the people in it exactly as they are, not as you wish them to be. Human nature is flawed, relationships are dynamic, and connections form and dissolve like clouds in the sky. From this perspective, ghosting is not a shocking violation of the natural order. It is a part of it. It is a messy, imperfect, but entirely natural human behavior. Fighting against this fact is like shaking your fist at the rain for being wet. You will only exhaust yourself in a futile battle against reality. When you expect people to always be kind, communicative, and perfectly reliable, you are setting yourself up for a lifetime of disappointment. You are trying to force the chaotic, beautiful diversity of human nature into a tiny, rigid box of your own design. The Stoic approach is to throw away the box. Accept that some people will be loyal, some will be flaky, some will communicate clearly, and some will disappear without a word. This is not cynicism, it is clarity. It is seeing the forest of human interaction for what it is, with all its sturdy oaks and its brittle, falling branches. Ghosting is simply one of those falling branches, a natural occurrence in the ecosystem of your social life. By accepting this, you remove the element of personal shock. The event does not land as a bewildering anomaly, but as a predictable, if unpleasant, part of the landscape. Your energy shifts from asking, "Why did this unnatural thing happen to me?" to observing, "This is one of the ways people sometimes behave." This acceptance is not passive resignation, it is an active realignment. You stop trying to control the wind and instead learn to adjust your sails. You invest your emotional energy in relationships that demonstrate their resilience naturally, through consistent action and open communication, rather than in those that require you to constantly plead for basic decency. Living in accordance with nature means flowing with the current of reality, not being dragged under by it. The pain of being ghosted comes from the snap of a branch you believed was unbreakable. But when you understand that all branches are subject to the forces of wind and time, you can appreciate the connection while it lasts without being shattered when it falls. You walk through the forest of your life with your eyes open, grateful for the strong trees, and completely unsurprised by the occasional snap of a twig underfoot. Your mind can spin a story of rejection from a single silent moment, but there is a tool to stop that narrative before it consumes you. Grab a pen and paper and begin the 14th Stoic tactic, the practice of objective journaling. This is not a diary for venting your raw emotions that often just reinforces the pain. This is a disciplined exercise in separating the cold, hard facts from the fiery storm of your interpretations. Start by drawing a line down the center of a blank page. On the left side, you will write only what you know to be objectively true. The facts are sparse and simple. I sent a message on Tuesday at 3 p.m. I have not received a reply. The last interaction was a pleasant one. That is it. That is the entire universe of what you can prove. Now look at the right side of the page. This is where you pour out everything else, the story your mind has created. They are ignoring me because I am boring. They found someone better. They never really liked me. I must have said something wrong. Seeing these two columns side by side is a moment of profound clarity. The left side is a small, quiet list. The right side is a chaotic, painful novel you have written based on a handful of silent data points. The journal forces you to confront the vast gap between what happened and the meaning you assigned to it. You are not your thoughts, you are the observer of your thoughts, and writing them down externalizes them, turning vague, internal torment into manageable words on a page. You can then look at the right column and ask the crucial Stoic question, is this absolutely true? Can I know with 100% certainty that their silence is about my worth? The answer is always no. You are faced with the undeniable evidence that you have been torturing yourself with a story, not a fact. This practice builds a mental muscle of objectivity. Each time you sit down and perform this separation, you are training your brain to default to clarity instead of catastrophe. The next time you feel that initial sting of being ignored, the habit will already be forming. You will find yourself instinctively thinking, these are just the facts, and this is the story I am telling myself. That tiny pause, that moment of discernment, is where you reclaim your power. The ghosting loses its ability to trigger a spiral of negative self-talk because you have a proven system to intercept it. Your journal becomes a sacred space for truth, a mirror that reflects back only what is real, and in that reflection you see your own strength returning. That journal is a map of your own mind, a tool for separating fact from fiction. But what if you could build a life so complete from within that these external storms barely cause a ripple? This is the 15th Stoic tactic, the art of contentment, or autarky, which means self-sufficiency. It is the practice of finding your deepest satisfaction not in the presence or approval of others, but in the rich internal landscape of your own character and your connection to the world around you. When your sense of well-being is an internal generator, not an extension cord you plug into other people, their sudden departure cannot cause a blackout. The ghoster did not take the power source with them because the power source was always you. Think of your happiness as a house. If you build that house with rooms that only one specific person can fill, their absence leaves a cavernous, echoing emptiness. But if you build a house where every room is already furnished by your own interests, your values, your curiosity, and your peace, then a guest leaving is simply that, a guest leaving. The house remains warm, lit, and fully livable. Their silence does not create a crisis because your fundamental contentment was never their responsibility to maintain. This is not about becoming a hermit or rejecting human connection. It is about changing the nature of those connections. You stop looking for someone to complete you and start looking for people to share your already complete self with. You relate from a place of abundance, not deficit. When you are content on your own, you are no longer desperate for any particular person's attention to feel okay. This changes everything. You stop clinging, you stop over-analyzing texts, you stop molding yourself to fit what you think they want. You show up as your authentic self because your worth is not on the line. And this self-sufficiency is magnetic. It attracts healthier, more substantial connections while making you virtually immune to the manipulative power of silence. The person who tries to ghost you finds that their most potent weapon, withdrawal, simply does not work. They expected to leave a void, but instead they find you standing in a garden you cultivated yourself, a space so full and vibrant that their departure is noted only as a slight change in the breeze. You realize the void you feared was never really there at all. It was just an empty room you had not yet gotten around to furnishing with your own spirit. Your personal drama unfolds on a stage no larger than a pinprick. Rise above it, not in thought, but in a deliberate mental flight to a vantage point so high the entire world unfolds beneath you like a silent, swirling marble. This is the 16th tactic, the view from above. Begin by visualizing the very room you are in. See yourself sitting there, perhaps holding your phone, feeling the weight of that silence. Now pull the camera of your mind back up through the ceiling until you see your entire home as a small box. Keep pulling back. Your neighborhood becomes a grid of streets, your city a patch of light and shadow on the land. The country itself is now just a shape nestled among others on the glowing curve of the planet. Further still, until the Earth is a pale blue sphere hanging in the immense, soundless black of space. From here, can you even locate the specific person who ghosted you? Can you pinpoint the exact moment of that unanswered text? The entire event has shrunk to absolute invisibility, lost in the breathtaking scale of existence. Your anxiety, your self-pity, the story you have been telling yourself about what their silence means, all of it is contained within a single, microscopic dot in an infinite cosmos. This meditation does not erase your feelings, but it places them in their true proportion. The pain is real, but its power to dominate your entire consciousness is an illusion you are now dismantling from a million miles up. You are not denying the event, you are simply seeing it in its proper, tiny context. That person's decision, which felt so monumental from ground level, is revealed as a trivial occurrence in the grand narrative of human interaction, itself just a fleeting chapter in the life of a planet. When you return your awareness to your body, you bring back a piece of that cosmic perspective. The sting may still be there, but it is now surrounded by an immense, quiet emptiness that makes it feel small and manageable. The ghosting is no longer a crisis. It is a speck of dust on the windshield of a journey that spans continents and stars. Your peace was always this vast, you just forgot how to see it. Your plans for the future are written in sand, not stone. The 17th Stoic tactic asks you to add a simple, silent phrase to every hope and every attachment you form, a mental caveat known as the reserve clause. You consciously tell yourself, I will invest in this connection, fate permitting. I will make these plans if nothing prevents it. This is not a cynical expectation of failure, but a wise acknowledgement of reality. It is the difference between clutching a fragile glass vase with all your might and holding it with an open, relaxed palm. The vase is the same, but your relationship to it is utterly transformed. When you attach to a person or a future without this reserve clause, you are essentially writing a script for a play and demanding that reality, with all its chaos and free will, perform it word for word. The ghoster, by disappearing, has simply deviated from your personal script. Your pain is the sound of your expectations shattering. But when you approach every connection with that quiet proviso, you are no longer the rigid playwright, you are a flexible co-creator. You do your part with integrity and openness, but you leave room for the universe to do its part, whatever that may be. Their decision to leave becomes just one of the many possible outcomes you had already made space for in your mind. It is not a shocking betrayal, but a potentiality that has now been actualized. This mental preparation makes the unexpected ending feel less like a personal attack and more like a change in the weather. You enjoyed the sunshine while it lasted, and now it is raining. You do not rage at the sky for its inconsistency. You simply open your umbrella and continue your walk. The reserve clause is the ultimate tool for releasing your grip on outcomes. It allows you to engage fully with life, to love deeply and plan boldly, all while holding those very attachments with a light touch. You are freed from the tyranny of how things should be and can instead meet life as it is with grace and resilience. Your peace was never meant to be conditional on someone else's consistent presence, and now you have the internal agreement to prove it. That initial sting you feel is a clean, sharp pain, a raw signal from your nervous system that something expected has failed to occur. It is a biological alert, no different from the quick flash of heat when you touch a hot surface. Your body is doing its job, telling you that a social connection has been unexpectedly severed. This is the pain, and according to Stoic wisdom, it is completely natural, involuntary, and brief. It is the first impression we discussed, a raw datum of experience, but what happens next is where your true power lies. The pain is the involuntary sting. The suffering is everything you choose to add to it. Suffering is the weeks spent replaying conversations, the sleepless nights inventing reasons for their silence, the bitter story you tell yourself about your own inadequacy. Pain is the single, sharp cut. Suffering is the infection you allow to fester in the wound by constantly picking at it with your thoughts. The ghosting itself delivered the pain, a momentary event. But you, through your judgments and your relentless rumination, are the one who manufactures the suffering. You are taking that one silent moment and building an entire cathedral of agony around it, brick by painful brick with your own mind. The key is to learn the delicate art of letting the pain pass through you without inviting it to stay for a prolonged and destructive visit. When you feel that initial ache of being ignored, acknowledge it with neutrality. Ah, there it is, the sting of rejection. It is unpleasant, but it is just a sensation. It is a cloud passing in front of the sun. Do not compound it by telling yourself a story about what it means. Do not declare this pain is proof I am unlovable. Simply observe the sensation itself without the dramatic narration. This is the difference between feeling a pang of hunger and deciding you are starving to death. One is a temporary physical state, the other is a catastrophic narrative that creates immense mental suffering. Your goal is not to become a robot who feels nothing, but to become a sage who feels everything without being destroyed by it. You allow the clean pain to exist, you breathe through it, and you watch as it naturally begins to subside, as all sensations do, but you refuse to pour fuel on it with your judgments. You refuse to transform a simple, silent message into a lifelong verdict on your worth. By differentiating between the two, you realize you have been fighting the wrong enemy all along. You have been trying to avoid the unavoidable pain of social friction, when the real adversary was the optional suffering you were layering on top of it. The ghosting had the power to cause you a moment of pain, but only you had the power to transform that into weeks of suffering. And once you see that truth, you can simply stop. You can feel the hurt without becoming the hurt. You can let the wave of pain crash over you and then watch with quiet empowerment as it recedes, leaving you still standing, your inner peace scratched but fundamentally unbroken. This very moment is your personal dojo of detachment. The entire ghosting experience, from the first pang of confusion to the lingering quiet, is not a problem to be solved but a training ground meticulously arranged by life itself. You are here to practice, and the silence is your sparring partner. Every time you feel the urge to check your phone for a reply that is not there, you are at the weight rack of patience, choosing to let the moment be without forcing an outcome. Each wave of anxiety about what they might be thinking is an opportunity to lift the heavy barbell of equanimity, to steady your breathing and return your focus to what is right in front of you. This is where your philosophical knowledge becomes lived wisdom. Reading about the dichotomy of control is one thing, but actually applying it when your heart is aching is the real rep. This person, by disappearing, has handed you the perfect conditions to strengthen your emotional core. They are the resistance against which your resilience muscles contract and grow. Without this friction, your peace would remain theoretical, an untested idea. Now it is being forged in the fire of real-world social friction. Think of a sailor who only ever trained on calm seas. They would be utterly unprepared for the first real storm. Your ghosting experience is that storm, and it is showing you exactly where your emotional vessel is leaky. Are you still seeking external validation to feel secure? That is a leak you can now patch. Are you building catastrophic stories from a single data point? That is a navigational error you can correct. This is not a punishment. It is the most practical curriculum imaginable for building unshakable inner strength. The person who faded away was not your enemy. They were an unlikely and uncompromising sensei, teaching you the most valuable lesson of all: how to be complete and content even when someone you valued walks away. Every time you choose your own peace over passing their silence, you earn a black belt in self-possession. Their silence cannot touch the simple reality of this breath or the solid feel of the floor beneath your feet. The 20th tactic is to anchor yourself so firmly in the present moment that the ghosting loses its grip on you entirely. This is where Stoic wisdom meets mindful practice, a powerful fusion that pulls you out of the haunted corridors of the past and the uncertain shadows of the future. The pain of being ghosted almost never exists in the present itself. It lives in the relentless replay of the past, dissecting every word of your last conversation for a clue you might have missed. Or it projects into the future, weaving stories of perpetual loneliness, convincing you that this silence is your permanent fate. Both are illusions. The past is a memory, a story you are telling yourself right now. The future is a fantasy, another story you are writing with anxious ink. The only thing that is real, the only place where you truly exist and have any power, is this single, undeniable moment. Right now, are you physically safe? Is there air in your lungs? Look around you and name 3 things you can see: the texture of the wall, the light from the window, the shape of a cup. This is your anchor. When you feel that familiar pull into the past, mourning what you think you lost, gently guide your attention back to a physical sensation, the weight of your body in the chair, the sensation of your hands resting on your lap. The past is gone, and your rumination cannot change it. When anxiety about the future arises, the fear that you will never connect with anyone again, return to your breath. The future is not here, and your worry cannot control it. All you ever have to handle is this one moment, and in this moment you are still here, you are still breathing, and you are still capable of action. What can you do right now, in this present moment, that aligns with your values and serves your peace? You can stand up and stretch, you can drink a glass of water. You can open a book and read a single page. You can send a kind message to a friend, not as a replacement, but as an affirmation of the connections that are actively present in your life. By taking one small, positive action in the now, you reclaim your agency from the ghost. You prove that your life is not on hold waiting for a reply that may never come. Your life is happening right here in the vivid details of the present, and you are the one living it. The power of ghosting evaporates when you stop giving your attention to the silent phantom of the past or the lonely phantom of the future, and instead invest it fully in the rich, tangible reality of the now. Their silence feels like a tear in the fabric of your world, but what if that fabric is far more vast and resilient than you can see? The 21st tactic is to practice sympatheia, the profound Stoic recognition that everything in the universe is woven together in a single, rational, interconnected whole. You, the person who ghosted you, the pain you feel, and the peace you seek are all inseparable parts of this cosmic tapestry. The ghoster's action, from your isolated perspective, is a senseless, painful snip of a thread. But from the viewpoint of the whole, it is simply one necessary movement in the grand design. This is not about claiming their behavior was good or right, but about trusting that it plays a role in the unfolding of a larger story you cannot yet read in full. It is the understanding that a forest fire, while destructive to individual trees, clears the way for new growth and enriches the soil for the entire ecosystem. Your painful experience is that fire, and it is making space for something new to take root within you. When you can shift your focus from the single burned tree to the health of the entire forest, the event transforms. It is no longer a random act of cruelty aimed at you personally, but a difficult yet integral part of your soul's ecosystem. This person entered your life for a reason, and they have now left for a reason, both of which serve your ultimate development. Their departure creates a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. That empty space will inevitably be filled by new connections, new insights, and a new depth of character that could not have existed without this rupture. Trusting in this interconnectedness means releasing the need to fully understand the why and instead accepting the is. It is an act of faith in a universe that is fundamentally rational and ordered, even when its methods feel harsh and confusing from your limited human vantage point. You are being woven into a stronger, more complex pattern, and sometimes the loom requires a thread to be cut to allow for a more beautiful design to emerge. Your task is not to fight the weaver, but to trust the tapestry. Their silence is the event, but your well-being is the outcome, and in the vast space between the two lies a single, powerful choice. This is the 20-second tactic, the conscious selection of your response. You cannot control the ghosting, but you have absolute sovereignty over how you react to it. Your response is the final gatekeeper of your peace, and you must choose its form with the strategic clarity of a Stoic. One path is to meet their silence with a dignified silence of your own. This is not passive acquiescence, it is an active and powerful decision to disengage. By not chasing, not pleading, not demanding an explanation, you communicate a profound truth that your time and attention are valuable, and you will not auction them off for scraps of communication. Your quiet becomes a mirror, reflecting back the emptiness of their own action. Another path is to simply move on without a word, pouring your energy into your own life with such focus that their absence becomes irrelevant. You are not ignoring the situation out of weakness, you are transcending it through focused action. The third and most nuanced option is to send a single, brief closure message, but only if it serves your own peace and is utterly devoid of emotional charge. This is not a message designed to provoke a reply or assign blame. It is a simple, factual statement for your own benefit, something like, "I am noticing we have not been in touch, so I will assume the connection has run its course. I wish you well." Then you hit send and you truly let go with no expectation of a response. You have drawn a line under the event for yourself. The one response that is always off the table, the reaction that hands all your power back to the ghoster, is the desperate, reactive plea. The long text asking what you did wrong, the angry message accusing them of cruelty, the bargaining note promising to change, these are all emotional confessions that your stability is dependent on their validation. They are a direct violation of the dichotomy of control, as you are frantically trying to manage their feelings and actions. A reactive message is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. It only intensifies the drama and deepens your sense of powerlessness. Your chosen response, whether silence, moving on, or calm closure, must be an action that reinforces your own self-respect. It is a declaration that you are the author of your story, and you will not let a minor character write a tragic ending. Every time you resist the urge to react and instead choose a response aligned with your character, you are not just dealing with a ghoster, you are building the unshakable foundation of your own emotional freedom. Your digital world can become a gallery of their absence, every scroll a fresh reminder of the silence. The 23rd tactic is a direct application of Stoic temperance, a deliberate choice to limit your social media exposure. This is not about running away, but about proactively controlling your environment to protect your most valuable asset, your inner peace. Every time you see their profile picture, a new post, or a story they are tagged in, you are voluntarily reopening the wound. You are handing them a remote control to your nervous system and allowing them to press the pain button whenever they choose to live their life online. The Stoic virtue of temperance is about self-regulation and mastery over your desires and impulses. In this context, it means mastering the impulse to digitally self-harm by seeking out information that you already know will cause you distress. The action is simple, but its impact is profound. Mute their stories, unfollow their feed. If necessary, take a complete break from the platform itself for a set period. This is not a passive act of avoidance. It is an active, empowered decision to curate your sensory input. You are recognizing that your mind is a sacred space, and you are installing a filter on the information that is permitted to enter. Think of it as putting on mental noise-canceling headphones in a room filled with chaotic sound. The noise still exists out in the world, but you have chosen to create a quiet sanctuary for your own thoughts to regroup and heal. This is you exercising the dichotomy of control in a tangible, daily way. You cannot control what they post, but you have 100% control over whether you see it. By choosing not to look, you are reclaiming your attention and redirecting it inward toward your own recovery and growth. The constant digital reminders keep you trapped in a loop of the past, but this act of temperance pulls you firmly into the present, where your real life and your true power reside. Your peace is worth more than any update, and protecting it is the ultimate sign of self-respect. Sometimes the most powerful action is to reach for a book written 2,000 years ago. In the quiet aftermath of being ghosted, when your own thoughts begin to spiral, the direct words of a Stoic philosopher can feel like a steadying hand on your shoulder. This is the 24th tactic, to actively seek solace and guidance in the original texts. Do not just recall the principles from memory, but physically open Marcus Aurelius's Meditations or Epictetus's Discourses and read a passage at random. You will almost certainly find a line written precisely for your current state of mind. Marcus Aurelius, ruling a vast empire on the brink of war and plague, constantly reminded himself of the same truths you need to hear today. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Reading that in his own words from a man who carried unimaginable burdens instantly recalibrates your own situation. Your problem is not minimized, but your capacity to handle it is magnified. You are not the first person to feel this sting of rejection, and you are reading the notes of someone who faced down literal barbarians at the gate with the same core philosophy you are learning to apply to a silent text message. This practice pulls you out of your isolated bubble of hurt and places you into a long, unbroken lineage of human resilience. Epictetus, born a slave, asks, if someone handed your body over to just any person who met you, you would be angry. But are you not ashamed that you hand over your own mind to anyone who happens to insult you, allowing it to be disturbed and bewildered? This is not abstract theory, it is a direct challenge. It reframes the ghosting as a test of who truly controls your mind. Are you handing over the keys to your peace to someone who has voluntarily walked away? These texts provide the ultimate perspective shift. They are a conversation across centuries, reminding you that your current adversity, while deeply personal, is a universal human experience. The specific form is modern, but the core challenge of dealing with perceived slights, betrayal, and emotional turmoil is ancient. By turning to these pages, you are not escaping your reality. You are arming yourself with the most time-tested wisdom available to face it with unwavering grace. Their silence feels like a void, but these words fill that space with purpose, strength, and the profound reassurance that you are walking a path others have walked before and they have left you a map. Holding a grudge is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to feel the effects. The 25th and final tactic is Stoic forgiveness, a profound act of self-liberation that has nothing to do with the person who ghosted you and everything to do with reclaiming your own mind. Forgiveness in this philosophy is not about condoning their behavior, sending them a message of absolution, or even ever speaking to them again. It is a private, internal decision to release the hot coal of resentment you have been clutching in your fist. You are not doing it for them, you are doing it for you, because that burning anger is scorching your own hand, not theirs. Every moment you spend harboring bitterness is a moment you are allowing them to live rent-free in your head, continuing to exert control over your emotional state long after they have physically departed. This is the ultimate violation of the dichotomy of control, as you are voluntarily letting their past action dictate your present peace. To forgive in the Stoic sense is to finally drop the coal. It is to look squarely at what happened and declare, I will no longer let this event control my inner world. I accept that it occurred, I see it as a reflection of their nature, and I now choose to set down the weight of my anger so I can walk forward unburdened. This is a transaction you make with yourself for yourself. You are not erasing the past, you are simply refusing to let it poison your future. Think of resentment as a heavy chain you have been dragging behind you. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks it, not from their ankle, but from your own. The moment you turn that key, you are free to move at your own pace toward your own horizons, no longer tethered to a ghost. This final act completes your reclamation of power, proving that your peace was, and always will be, your own to give and your own to protect. This journey through 25 Stoic tactics is your complete blueprint for personal sovereignty. Every principle we have explored, from the dichotomy of control to the final act of forgiveness, serves a single, unifying purpose: to build an inner citadel so resilient that no external silence can ever breach its walls. The goal was never to control the ghost, to make them reply, or to force an apology. The true victory lies in making their action irrelevant to your peace. You have moved from feeling like a victim of someone else's choice to becoming the unwavering author of your own response. These are not mere ideas, they are mental muscles, and like any muscle, they grow stronger with consistent practice. Your mission now is to begin. Choose just one of these 25 tactics, the one that resonates most deeply with your current challenge, and commit to practicing it for the next 7 days. It could be the daily act of objective journaling to quiet a racing mind, or a deliberate session of voluntary discomfort to build your tolerance for unease. Perhaps it is simply repeating the reserve clause, fate permitting, as you make your plans. Do not try to master them all at once. True strength is built one rep at a time. Put one tool into action and witness the shift it creates in your life. We would be honored to hear about your journey in the comments below. Tell us which tactic you are practicing and what you are discovering about your own unshakable strength. Your story could be the very inspiration someone else needs to begin their own.